The Fragrance Illuminati is going to put a hit out on me for this one. Stay tuned. All right, so this is going to be super controversial. And I know that a lot of people may disagree with me, so it's totally okay if you disagree with me. I totally understand that a lot of people love cologne fragrances. They swear by them, you know, for what they can afford. It's a great alternative, and I totally think that's great. But hear me out. So the first point I want to make with cologne fragrances, there's a reason so many influencers are pushing cologne fragrances out in the wild right now. If you notice, there's a lot of links in these videos where they're pushing these cologne fragrances, bringing you to a place where you then can go and purchase that fragrance. Now, there's a lot of people that cannot afford to spend $200, $300, $400 on a niche or high-end designer fragrance. Totally understand that. So what you imagine is a numbers game. You may pay $1, $1.50 commission on selling a designer or high-end niche fragrance, where they might only pay a nickel or 25 cents for cologne fragrance. And that cologne fragrance is going to be more accessible to way more people than that niche or high-end designer fragrance. So just imagine this. If you sell 100,000 cologne fragrances, making 25 cents each, then you're making a lot more money than you're selling 10,000 high-end or niche fragrances at $1 a piece. So you're selling 10,000 at $1 a piece, that's $10,000. You send 100,000 cologne fragrances at 25-cent commission, that's $25,000. So you're making a lot more money, even though you have less commission. More people are buying the cologne in knockoff fragrances. So that's my first point. My second point is there's a lot more people interested in cologne fragrances because it's this kind of viral thing going on in the fragrance world right now. So a lot of people are interested in the cologne fragrances because, for one, a $200, $300 fragrance just isn't in their wheelhouse. So they want to smell good. They want to smell high-end, bougie, rich, with having a fragrance that's going to smell like another fragrance. Totally respectable. I understand that. But here's the problem. Fragrances are art. An artist, a perfumer, created that fragrance. So the perfume house has to pay that perfumer to make that fragrance. They have to spend months, sometimes years, developing a scent profile for a fragrance that has then had to spend money to market that fragrance and create a bottle design and create a personality for that fragrance. Find out who they're selling it to and what kind of people are going to be interested in that fragrance. And then they have to pay the stores marketing money to promote that fragrance. So a lot of money goes into marketing a fragrance. I saw Jeremy Fragrance talk about the cost of developing a bottle, and he was talking about, oh yeah, the bottle costs 25 cents and the juice inside costs $1 and blah, 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 blah. Yes, the cost of making a fragrance is very low, but the cost of developing and designing that fragrance is very high. So imagine a video game. A video game maybe costs $1.50 or $2 to produce. The disc, the box, the packaging, whatever. But here's the thing. It costs a lot of money to pay game designers to create that game. Many, many years of developing and designing and research all go into developing that video game just to market it to the people that are going to play the video game. And then there's ongoing support for that video game. So it costs thousands, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to develop these things. And then you, the consumer, have to recoup that money from the consumer. So how do they do that? They sell it to you at a premium cost. Now, don't get me wrong. There is still a high markup for fragrances. Absolutely. But that being said, it's going to pay for the constant developing of newer fragrances and things like that. So yes, there's a lot of money to be made, but the cost is still much higher than you can imagine. And then you've got a clone house that comes in and takes that design and just copies it. They take the recipe, they remake it, and they put out a bottle with pretty much the similar design, and then they sell it to you for $20, $30, right? Because they didn't have to spend all that money to develop that fragrance. They didn't have that back end cost. So now you can buy it for 30 bucks. There you go. We're not supporting the artist. We're not supporting the money that goes into developing these fragrances. And if we don't support those people, they're not going to be able to continue to make fragrances. And then who's the clone going to clone then? Nobody. Here's another point. Clone fragrances can get very close to the original. Absolutely. They really can get very close to the original, but they're never going to be exactly the same. The level of quality of ingredients aren't going to be the same. The level of quality of design isn't going to be the same. And what you're left with is basically a knockoff Gucci purse or pair of, like when I was a kid, Wu Wear was the big thing. Wu-Tang had a clothing line and a lot of people bought Wu Wear. And then you could go to a flea market and buy a pair of ironed on Wu Wear logos onto a pair of just basic Wrangler jeans. Is it the same? Absolutely not. They don't fit the same way. They don't look the same way. They look cheap. You wash them a few times and the labels start peeling off. It's not the same. So what would you rather have? Something that's going to be of high quality, that's going to last a long time and not turn sour in your collection, or something that is going to be lower quality? My last point, okay? The difference between clone fragrance and niche or high-end designer fragrance is similar to the difference between a Coca-Cola can and generic cola. I don't know if you've ever had generic cola comparing to Coca-Cola, but Coca-Cola, you can really taste the flavors. You can identify certain flavor in that Coca-Cola. There's just a certain crispness to it. There's a certain clarity to it. And there's a certain flavor that really makes you know that when you're sipping it, it tastes like Coca-Cola. Cola, on the other hand, that you buy generic at the grocery store, almost doesn't have a soul. It's sort of flat. It's bland. It tastes like cola, but it's not Coca-Cola. So if you can imagine the difference between that and that is what you're getting with cloned fragrances. It sort of smells the same, soulless, and it doesn't have the same bite, the same quality, the same experience that you get with a high-end designer or niche fragrance. So that is why cloned fragrances are being marketed to you, but they're not the same. They're not 95% the same or 98% the same. Never one-to-one clones. They're always going to be lower quality or something different or with a twist that is not the original. So in a nutshell, clone fragrances are being marketed to people for the money. They are making lots of money for the influencers that are promoting them, for the people that are selling them. They're making people a lot of money. And they are also creating viral content. But pay mind to the fact that these are not exact replicas of the original. You are not paying homage or respect to the developers, to the artists, to the perfumers that created these fragrances. And I promise you, you are not getting the same quality that you would imagine you would get from spending the more money on the fragrance. I'm going to make one more point, okay? I'm in a lot of fragrance groups on Facebook, and I watch a lot of people that sell their clone fragrances. And here's the thing. You pay 25, 30 bucks for that clone fragrance. Someone who's buying it used online doesn't want to pay more than 50 to 60% of what you originally paid for that fragrance. So here's the deal. You're going to sell it for 10, 15 bucks. You're going to pay $5, $6, $7 for shipping, and you're not going to recoup your money. So you're not only losing money when you're reselling that fragrance, you're going to end up with something that eventually you're going to get bored with because it doesn't have that charisma that an original fragrance has. A lot of people are getting bored with them. They're selling them. Now, it might feel great to buy that fragrance and to get it in your possession. You smell it. You're like, ooh, this smells so good. But here's the thing. A majority of people that are buying them 6 months down the road, sometimes even shorter, they're reselling them or they're gifting them people because they're just not as interesting. If you are trying to build a fragrance collection, you want quality over quantity. Quality is always going to trump quantity, because with quantity, you're getting a lot of fragrances that you don't wear that are just going to sit and collect dust. And then eventually you're going to try to recoup your money and you're going to end up losing money in the long run. That's all I have to say about this. Please do not crucify me for what I'm saying. And I understand the fragrance Illuminati out there. You may come after me. Listen, no hard feelings, okay? I hope you guys like this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want, you can click down below to support my Patreon. In the comments on TikTok, you can definitely do that. If you feel necessary, you don't have to. Please do not feel obligated. But I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys for leaving comments and liking my videos. And as always, have a fragrant state of mind.